What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Chase Sapphire Reserve and what you're going to have to do if you want to be approved for this card. We're going to be talking about some of the things Chase looks for, and at the end of the video we're going to kind of go over a few things you can do yourself if you don't think you're ready to be approved for the card to kind of bolster your credit portfolio. Before we get started, of course, make sure to give the video a like and subscribe if you do end up enjoying it, as I put out videos like this all the time. Now, of course, the Chase Sapphire Reserve is one of the top tier travel credit cards, and for a lot of people, the top tier. This is the credit card to get for travel, that sort of thing. It has a bunch of great travel multipliers. It has some awesome credits. It has a bunch of awesome rewards categories. It's all around a great credit card that a lot of people can get really, really good value out of. However, of course, it is one of the more premium credit cards on the market, so it is definitely something that's a little bit harder to be approved for. I guess the question is, what are you going to have to do to be approved for this card? And unfortunately, Chase doesn't really make it too easy for us. They're not going to tell you what you have to do to be approved for this card, which is unfortunate. However, there is a lot of information online of other people's experiences about applying for the card and whether or not they were approved, and kind of learning a little bit about them. With this, we can kind of get a little more information into what it takes to be approved. Now, generally, if you want to be approved for the reserve, you are going to have a credit score of at least 700. That would be like the bare minimum. Not saying people with a lower credit score have never been approved, but generally, you're going to want at least a 700 credit score. Ideally, a 720 to a 750 will increase your odds of approval by a good margin, but 700 would kind of be the rock bottom. However, usually it's not too hard to increase your credit score by a few points. It's not the end of the world if your credit score is a little bit lower than you want it to be. We'll go over things you can do in a few minutes to kind of increase it to get it to the point where you might be approved for the reserve. So something else you're going to want to keep in mind is the Chase 524 rule. And this pretty much says if you have 5 new credit accounts within the last 24 months, you will not be approved for any Chase credit cards. This is not a usually rule. This is pretty much a definite. It doesn't matter if you have the best credit score ever. You have an 850, your credit portfolio is flawless, you have tons of other premium credit cards with high credit limits and low credit utilization. It doesn't matter, you will still be declined. You can't have more than 5 new personal credit accounts within the last 24 months of applying for any Chase credit card. So that's really something you need to keep in mind. You can take a look at your credit report, see when you were approved for your last card, and kind of do the timing out there, just to give yourself the ability to be approved for the card. So something else I want to touch on is the Chase Sapphire Reserve's minimum credit limit. And of course, when you're approved for a credit card, the credit card issuer is going to tell you you have a credit limit. And this is the most you can have outstanding or owing to the credit card company at one time. Now, with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, the minimum is $10,000. So this means if you're approved for the card, they have to at least trust you enough to give you $10,000 of credit, which sounds great. However, what this means is you're going to have a good enough credit score or credit portfolio to warrant you this $10,000 credit limit. And a good way to figure out if you will get it is if you have other credit cards currently that have a $10,000 credit limit. Because the thought would be, if you have an American Express Gold card with a $15,000 credit limit, well, Chase probably has some similar information and data. If American Express will give you $15,000, Chase will probably give you $15,000 too, or at least that $10,000. So that's kind of a good way to benchmark yourself. On the contrary, if you only have a few credit cards and the largest credit limit on one of your credit cards is maybe $2,000, maybe you have 3 credit cards with a $2,000 credit limit, you're probably not going to be approved for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, because you kind of have to ask yourself, if Discover and Capital One are only willing to give me a $2,000 credit limit on a credit card, why is Chase going to give me a $10,000 credit limit? So again, something to keep in mind, it's of course not a guarantee if you don't have a $10,000 credit limit that you won't be approved, but it's just another piece of data we can look at to kind of gauge where you are and whether or not your odds of approval are high or low. Something else that I do want to touch on is income, just because this is a pretty premium credit card and most of the people applying for it you'd think have a higher income. However, generally, based upon a lot of the information online, this is not too important. We have a lot of evidence of people who don't have high incomes, maybe they're a college student being approved for this card, just because they have a good credit history, they have some sort of income, and it looks like they'd be able to pay off the credit card in full. So again, something to keep in mind. However, it seems as though it is not one of the most important factors in your approval for this card. Something else that I do want to touch on is just having a relationship with Chase can increase your odds of approval by more than you might think. Whether it's a credit card you have, like the Freedom or Freedom Flex, Freedom Student, something like that, or even like a checking or savings account, having this relationship with Chase is really helpful for them because they can see a little bit more information about you. And of course, it helps you too because if it's a credit card, it's also building your credit history to kind of bolster it for you. And of course, we see people who have savings accounts, checking accounts with Chase having a slightly higher odds of approval. They kind of have that in with, I'm already a Chase customer. If you don't approve me for this card, I'm going to have to go get an American Express credit card, that sort of thing. Chase wants to keep you in their ecosystem. And of course, if they can see your banking information, they could probably gather a little bit more information about you that might not be shown on your credit report, and that might increase your odds of approval. So we just talked about a few things that might give you a little more information about whether or not you think you'll be approved for this card and where you stand. So you might say, awesome, I think I'm going to be approved for this card. I don't think I'm going to be approved. You might fall somewhere in the middle. What are some things I can do to kind of increase my chances? Well, of course, if you don't have a credit score, you're going to want to get a credit card. There are a lot of secured credit cards out there, like the Discover It Secured, that your odds of approval for are extremely high. This will kind of get your foot in the door with credit, start building up your credit portfolio. After you've had this card for a few months, it's always good, if you're going for a Chase card, to try and get into that Chase ecosystem. They offer a bunch of awesome credit cards for students. They have the Chase Freedom Student Card. They also offer the Freedom Flex and Freedom Unlimited. And these are all credit cards you can get that will, one, bolster your credit portfolio because you are going to get another credit card. You're going to make payments on time. You're not going to have high credit utilization. So this is going to increase your credit score slowly over time. You're also going to have more credit accounts that you're paying off on time. And of course, you're doing this all with Chase. So you're giving them that business, of course. You're also giving them all that information about how responsible you are with paying off your credit cards every month. And you're just building up that relationship with Chase that we talked about earlier. So these are the kind of things you can kind of do to increase your odds of approval. And generally, it's not like you need to have 10 or 15 credit cards to be approved for this Sapphire Reserve. Having just a few credit cards, like a secured card, a Chase Freedom Unlimited, a Chase Freedom Flex, maybe the student card, having those for a while, building up your credit score to a point that you feel is above 700, definitely. You feel as though your credit score is extremely strong. You don't have high credit utilization. You don't have a bunch of new accounts. Your credit history is getting longer. You're not making late payments, that sort of thing. These are all factors that are going to increase your odds of approval when you actually do go apply for that Sapphire Reserve. So let's say you worked on your credit score, you built up your credit portfolio, you feel like it's really strong, you apply for that card and you're declined. Something you can still do is call up their Reconsideration line. And what this is kind of like a special phone number department at Chase where they will review your application and then they might approve you. And this might sound like a little odd, like why wouldn't they just have approved me initially? But a lot of the time they might just have like a question they want to ask you or something like that, which is why they'll say, oh, you were declined. You call them up and you're like, oh, we just had a discrepancy between some of the addresses you put in on your application. Something like that might be an issue. They might want to verify your income. It's a lot of minor things. And then they could say, okay, you're approved. Another common one is you might call them and they might say, hi, like we're willing to extend $15,000 of credit to you, but you already have $7,500 on your Freedom Flex and $7,500 on your Freedom Unlimited. We can turn those both into $2,500 and give you the Sapphire Reserve with a $10,000 credit limit, and you'll be approved. And they didn't really change anything about you. You didn't have to defend yourself. It was just kind of one of those things that they couldn't approve you for initially because they had to move some of your credit around. So, of course, do give them a call if you are declined. It's always worth a shot. They might give you some information. You never know. And they might be able to help you get approved. So today we just talked about the Chase Sapphire Reserve, things that will increase your odds of approval, things you can do to increase your odds of approval, and a few things you can take a look at yourself to see if you think you'll even be approved and if it's worth your time to apply. If you guys have any questions, of course leave a comment down below. I'm always glad to respond, and there are always helpful people in the comment section backing me up, answering questions, that sort of thing. And of course, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like, as I do appreciate that a lot. And if you guys did enjoy this video, of course, make sure to subscribe to the channel as I put out videos like this all the time. And I will see you guys in the next one.